2020. All right, we're recording this for posterity. We have people at home, all over, wherever they are, joining us by Zoom. So welcome to you too. We've got a lot of people here tonight. I didn't know what to expect. You never do. But thank you for braving COVID and braving traffic. Traffic's probably even worse than COVID sometimes. So thank you for being here. I lost track. I think we're at the 694th meeting of the Poetry Society, starting in January of 1921. So really excited to, this year we're going to be celebrating our 101st anniversary, 102nd anniversary. No, first. Yeah, we sort of missed the big 100th anniversary gala from COVID, and then we decided we couldn't do it again for this year, but we are celebrating it in our own way. So I got this idea. We normally have a Christmas party in December, but that was out this year. So in my research, I literally wrote the book about the Poetry Society, and there were some very, very hard times in the Poetry Society in the 1960s and 70s. Where they didn't have money to pay the readers, and they wanted to get together, so they'd improvise reasons to get together, and they'd have there was a pride of poets, as in like a group of lions, so all men reading, and they had other ways just to get people up reading in front of the group, and so we're doing that tonight. We've got 6 poets, and they are among the best of the Poetry Society's membership. We're really happy about that. We've also got the book fair. A lot of people brought books to sell tonight, and I'm excited about that. If you need Christmas presents or whatever, and get them signed, and it's a great opportunity. And we are now giving away Self-Portrait in the River of Deja Vu. This book was published posthumously by Susan Lottmeyer's last book, and we have a lot of copies of this, and we tried selling them. At this point, everybody seems to have a copy, but if you don't, they're free. Tamara's in the back waving at you with a book right now. So just see her, take it. You're really like doing us a favor. You don't have to feel shy. We've got a huge box of these things. So take it, and it's excellent. It's almost a shame I have to beg people to take it because it's really amazing. It's the story of her great aunt, Mary Alice, who disappeared, leaving only her shoes behind at a river. So she was never seen again. But so you read all about that here. It's really neat. And what we're going to do, we've got 6 poets, 10 minutes apiece, and we're going to try to knock this thing out. I'm only going to make one introduction, and then the poets are going to introduce the successive poets who come after them. So it's my honor, it's always my honor to introduce Marjory Wentworth, who is the 6th Poet Laureate of South Carolina. I looked it up. We have every single Poet Laureate of South Carolina, except for one, has read for the Poetry Society. And Marjorie's read before too, but she finally was unburdened of that honor in 2020. But she served from 2003 to 2020 as our Poet Laureate, and in the great tradition of some really great ones going back into time. She has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize 7 times, the co-author of 8 books, and she brought books to sell tonight, and she teaches courses in writing, poetry, social justice, banned books, and all that at the College of Charleston. In the past, I used to introduce her as pulling up in her limousine or her helicopter from being the Poet Laureate. Nowadays, she's just getting around like regular people. And we are so excited to have Marjory Wentworth. You're back.
I'm like a foot shorter. Thank you. Yeah, when you resign as poet laureate, you have to give up the helicopter privilege. So, yeah. Anyway, it's so great to see everybody and to be in this space. So thank you for coming out, and thank you for thinking of doing this, Jim. This is a great idea, and I'm really happy to be here. So I am going to read a Christmas poem to begin, and I'm just going to read a few poems from my children's poetry book because everybody likes children's poetry, right? So my maternal grandmother had 8 children and many grandchildren, and she also worked full time. And I was actually holding her hand when she passed away, and we had to divide up all her belongings, and I ended up with her Christmas apron. So I'm going to begin with a poem about that. The Christmas apron. Unfolding my grandmother's apron, tucked deep in a box of Christmas decorations, I rubbed my hands across the wrinkled, cream-colored cloth as thin as gauze and the bright red and blue boxes circling the hem, and see her standing at the stove wearing her Christmas apron, stirring pots at every burner, a turkey already roasting in the oven, plates of gingerbread men cooling on the counter, each one her own creation. Dozens of cousins, aunts, and uncles circle the kitchen table in a haze of coffee, bacon, and cigarettes. Damp wool hats and mittens steam on the radiator beneath the kitchen windows thick with frost. My grandfather hauls in wood from the shed, smelling of pipe smoke and peppermints, shaking fresh snow from his plaid flannel sleeves. It's as if my childhood was inscribed on this stained handful of cloth, scattered with a celebration of ornaments tied with green ribbon and a tiny tag pinned at the waistband. This was Nana's apron. It's good to have an excuse to read a Christmas poem. So I'm going to share poems from this collaborative children's book I did, Out of Wonder, because the poems in the book were written mostly for kids and teachers to celebrate the lives of poets and the poetry that my friends Chris Colderly, Kwame Alexander, and I loved, because we felt that kids were getting exposed to a lot of this poetry in schools, right? So we came up with this idea of writing this book, and I'll hold it up for you, Out of Wonder, Poems Celebrating Poets. And each poem is in the style of a poet, or pays homage to a poet, or is a tribute to a poet. So what better audience than poetry lovers to share these poems? I did not do the art, of course. So I'm going to start with a poem. These are all poems that I wrote for the book, and this is one that celebrates Mary Oliver, who passed away right before COVID, I think, a few years ago. And it's called Loving the World and Everything in It. And I don't know if you can see the art, but for those, I feel like I'm in the kindergarten class here. I love it. But it almost looks like stained glass. And oh, the camera. Oh, excuse me. Yes, I know, it's a whole new world now, people. Loving the World and Everything in It, celebrating Mary Oliver. Each day I walk out onto the damp grass before the sun has spoken, because I love the world and the miracle of morning. I love to stand beside the old oak trees beneath a symphony of birdsong and listen to every perfect note, while the wind passes around me like a warm sea. Sometimes a feather drifts down into my hands, and I hold it and imagine flying. Sorry. The next one is about Robert Frost, and I grew up in New England, and so I love Frost's work, and actually got to read his the Frost Place in New Hampshire once. So I've actually walked around the land. And how many of you love Robert Frost? Or at some point you love Robert Frost. So I think you'll recognize, you know, sort of mentions of some of the lines will be familiar, or the references. And this is the art. Oh, I'll hold it up for the camera too. In every season, celebrating Robert Frost. In every season, I have wandered on paths that wind through fields and woods beside my farm, marked by low stone walls strung across the hills like unwound string. Out beyond the pasture and the brook bubbling beneath the pines, I have walked on ice through starless winter nights, into the orchard frozen in moonlight. I have stopped to shake the dry snow from the branches and watch the outline of each bare tree sharpen like stone, and considered that quite often life is too much like a pathless wood. Still, I have lived so long and traveled far, and I have climbed these hills and looked at the world and descended. You know, so the idea is that, you know, kids, maybe middle school, will, you know, think, oh, wow, Robert Frost, who was that? And then they'll get curious and learn about him. So I wrote one about Billy Collins, and how many of you remember hearing him right here, right? When was that?
10 years ago.
10 years ago, oh my gosh, can you believe it? So it seemed really fitting, and you know, we know Billy is so funny, right? His poems are funny, he's funny, everything about him. But what I love about his work is the way it celebrates the ordinary. You know, you kind of feel like you're sitting at his kitchen table while he's making tea and feeding his dog. So my poem is called How Billy Collins Writes a Poem. When you first wake up, notice how your mother's voice calling you to breakfast sounds like a fire alarm. Watch the steam rising off your oatmeal like tiny clouds and guess where it goes. Pay attention to the smallest things, a fly buzzing near the kitchen window, bright rocks in the driveway, the handful of marbles in your pocket, the sound they make when you walk. Imagine that the leaves spinning in the wind on the walk to school are alien ships, and that barking dogs belong to a prince. At night, when the stars seem close, reach up and grab some. Our lives are made from these things, and when you describe them, you discover magic. It's the way the pen becomes a wand in your hand, and this may be the only thing you need to know. Yeah, it was really important to us that kids would read these poems and think, oh, I can do that, I can do that. Let's read two more from this book. And a lot of you know the work of Terrence Hayes, another great poet from South Carolina, MacArthur Genius Award winner. And he had a whole series of poems that were sort of the Blue Terrence. And for those of you who know his work, you'll be familiar with these. And he's the master of wordplay. And I wrote a little poem called The Blue Alphabet, celebrating Terrence Hayes. Make a paint box out of letters, add water and dip your brush, swirl it on the paper with style while you are humming a tune, smiling or standing still. Waiting for the school bus, you can dazzle your friends with the words you have made and strung together like beads around your neck. And I'm trying to keep track of time. I'll end with a poem about Rumi. I'm really thrilled because this is the cover art was done by Ethel Holmes. She's a collage artist, and it's her art for the Rumi poem. And when I go into schools, the first thing I say is, oh, who has a baby named Rumi? What famous person has a baby named Rumi? Does anybody know? Anybody know who has twins named Rumi and Sir? Beyonce and Jay-Z, because Beyonce's favorite poet is Rumi. Well, that gets the kids' attention. That gets their attention. So, spin a song celebrating Rumi. Walk out of your room beneath the morning sky, let the sun enter your heart and find a way to keep it there. Make a song from the light falling through the air and dance even when you are alone. Dance if you are still sad. Dance when you are tired. Dance until your feet lift off the ground like wings. And later, when the stars are spinning in the night, put your ear to the ground and listen to the songs rising up from the earth. Everywhere you go, there is music. Good poems for adults too. So. All right, so I'm going to introduce Miho. Oh my gosh, I've never said her last Kinnas. Am I saying that right? I've known you all these years, and I've never. Okay, I'm so embarrassed. She is a 2019 Pushcart Prize nominee. She was born and raised in Japan. She just is visiting there, right? Social media is good for keeping track of your friends. And she now lives on Hilton Head Island. She holds an MFA in creative writing from City University of Hong Kong. Her books of poetry are Move Over, Bird and Fish Only, widely published in anthologies and journals. Miho first read for the Poetry Society in October 2017. Welcome, Miho.
Thank you. 2017, I was kind of fresh off the boat, very nervous. But when I came here, Francis and Marjory so kind, I felt so welcome. Marjory helped me park the car too. She almost get lost. But I am going to begin with this poem, Foreign. I just said I felt, feeling welcome, but I think everybody feels this way sometimes. Foreign. I am a bird flying in hurricane's eye. You may be able to see me through your binocular, but I cannot wait. I am a bartender with a different name. Please pay up when my shift ends. The night isn't deep enough. I'm a fugue running away, the same melody as the one that chases. We sometimes merge. I am a forgotten iron. I could be on or off. Contemplate the crisp glass. I am the fingers burning red around a mug of hot cocoa. It'll cool soon. I am an orange ladybug with small black dots like the fine font of this language. I am a monarch falling between the waves, yards away from the shore. Thank you. This poem is written in 3-line stanzas, and I think many of you know Len Lawson. He told me, Miho, that's your go-to form. And he's speaking of form, I have several poems in this book written in this way. This is what you do. You write a line every hour for 14 hours a day. And you have the base of your poem, and you can edit, but you cannot add or subtract. So I wrote this one shortly after Hurricane Matthew. Signs. Rattlesnakes are crossing the bay for higher ground. A fawn, a 4-legged midair, and 3 bicyclists pass by. The victims are unaware. What shall we be reborn as on such a beautiful day? The bartender lifts her breast, checking for the red ink smear on her white t-shirt. Grains of sand rest on the leeward side of each shell at the angle of repose. A red and white helicopter flies diagonally between the clouds. The borderland will be trespassed. For a while, a dog barks. first way on the striped tail in the middle of the road. An old woman washed up with barnacles and oysters. At least 24 people will be killed. The storm leaves the marsh cluttered with unpaved shoes, syringes, and beer cans. A family of deer was sighted on the flyover. It's funny that 24 victims does not sound as shocking as it did back then. Kind of strange. I'm going to read one little bit of experimental thing for me. I translate some haiku. It's haiku by Santoka. Santoka is a Japanese haiku poet who was active in 1900, and he is known for free verse haiku. Haiku is a form, so it doesn't make much sense. But it was probably the time people wanted it, he got away with it, and we enjoy this. So when I translate, I of course try to be loyal to the original piece, but somehow in the process of it, I get to create some space where I can write my own lines. That's not related directly to the poem, but something that makes me write. So, distance, after haiku by Santoka. まっすぐな道で寂しい. The straight path makes me lonely. Like a dog, I am good at looking away and pretend it's not there. Like grief, I am fine until the crisp letters brings out tears. Damn you, how I miss what I didn't know how much I missed. Another one, his line is, どうしようもない私が歩いている. There goes useless me, walking. I will tell you about the place in the photograph, but not how to get there. My shadow jumps ahead of me, but I still cannot catch you. Going to read two more poems. Do you know, does anyone write Chinese characters? So the Chinese character for like a bird cage or basket, it goes like this. So the poem is called The Cage. I follow your index finger, brush a Chinese character in the air. After 6 strokes, I begin to focus on the little Buddha on your throat. The bird cage is empty, but for the wooden perches inlaid with white jade. I am trying to mirror the character between us, the right side, your side. After the 19th stroke, I can't remember how to finish. A horizontal line or 2. You stretch a drop of water on the table to show me a phrase. A caged bird longs for clouds. A drop wishes to be with another drop. Merged into one, the meanings fuse. This is my last one. I am thinking about a friend of mine, a writer, really stylish woman. She suffered a lot during this time of COVID, and I was thinking about her. Listen. Listen at a violin from an orchestra. Beautiful swimmer cuts water without a splash. Sounds of an airplane can be heard only at night. A cellist leads the trio in her pink high heels. Red Camarian falls, a red lipstick by the sink. I am awake a few seconds before the earthquake. No light in the corridor, I stood there like a thief. Chopin's Mazurka ends mid-melody. I stand all day with the last note. Thank you. Our next presenter has published books of poetry, short stories, and one-act plays. He is sometimes humorous, sometimes serious, and occasionally both. Charles Watt has served on the board of the Poetry Society of South Carolina since 2016. Please welcome Charles Watt.
Good evening, folks. This first poem is a future poem. It takes place long in the future when I have my first meeting with my first great-granddaughter at the age of 20, which will put me in the my late 90s or early 100s, because I don't have a great-granddaughter yet. So this is my projection of what that meeting will be like. It's called Dinner with My Great-Granddaughter. We would like a table in the back corner where the noise will not overwhelm my hearing aids. So good of you to make time for me. Most 20-year-old young ladies cannot abide a meal with a man whose face is a roadmap of prior centuries. No, I never got that communication implant. You will have to speak. I know it is an older art, but I believe it is still taught in school. And speaking of school, aren't you about to graduate? Poetry, your mother's mother told me. Oh, I see. Not poetry. Unspoken word. Thought dreams transmitted through the ether. A sign language, sans hands. Perhaps you can translate one for me into words, like in the olden times. Exactly a week ago, I went on a shark hunting trip to a man-made barrier island in the harbor of Charleston Harbor. And I was warned that I should keep my eye out for the plug mud. And I failed. And I sunk into the plug mud, which is like quicksand, up to my hips. And two young ladies who happened to be walking by called my sorry ass out. And I thought I should write a poem about this, but I couldn't do it. So instead, I wrote a recipe for plug mud. 1, set up your kitchen along the coastline of South Carolina. 2, mix 5,000 parts small dead critters and 5,000 parts small live critters with the dirt at the water's edge. 3, add the dung of thousands of local and migrating birds. 4, add bushels of anaerobic bacteria per acre. 5, stir 4 times a day at high and low tides. 6, let this bionic roux age and marinate where there is Spartina grass marsh for, say, 1,000,000 years. 7, you will know it is ready when the smell becomes overpowering. 8, if it smells like rotten eggs or the spawn of hell, you're a tourist, a Yankee, or a redcoat. 9, if it has that rich, salty, earthy smell you have come to love, you're home. Okay, that's the humorous part. The next part is a political, ecological screed. It's longer, but it's my last poem. You'll know it's over when I throw my fist in the air. Okay. I was in New York, I was up in the Adirondack last summer, and I ran into an old friend who had just gotten a grant to put together a coalition of artists to respond to pollution in the Lake Placid watershed basin. And she asked me to write a poem for the group. We won't be making our overall presentation until July, but I got permission to read it, the draft of it to you guys, so I can get some feedback and see if I can make it better. So here we go. It's called Watershed. 1. In the beginning, a seething mass of molten rock. In the beginning, the surface cooled, volcanoes formed, blasted gas into the firmament, created a sky of hydrogen sulfides, methane, CO2. 2. In the beginning, air without oxygen enveloped the land. As the surface cooled, water formed in the heavens. Water rained down, and oceans overlaid the surface of creation. 3. In the beginning, water blanketed the firmament, a tepid soup unstirred by any chef, a chemical broth devoid of life. 4. In the beginning, fire rained down from the dome of the sky, meteorites filled with amino acids, the building blocks of life rained down. In the beginning, fire boiled up from the core of the planet from vents on the ocean floor. In the beginning, fire scalded the water, transforming the lifeless into life. 5. In the beginning, earth rose amidst the fire, a volcanic swelling above the seas, and the volcanoes became soil, and the soil became home to life, and the life grew, and it was good. Newsbreak, Lake Champlain is under attack. The media tells us it's the weather. Quote, cyanobacteria blooms are made up of microorganisms, sometimes called blue-green algae, that can produce harmful toxins. They occur naturally after prolonged stretches of hot weather and can become dangerous to humans at elevated levels. NBC 5, Burlington, Vermont, 7/12/2021. But what of the phosphates washing down from the lawns in Vermont and the Adirondacks? What of the manure from dairy cows washing down the streams and rivers of the watershed? What of humankind's preference for manicured lawns over meadows, for the economy over clean air, over clean water? 7. Newsbreak, quote, agricultural runoff is now responsible for 80% of excessive nutrients in our freshwater and oceans, which cause dense growth of plant life like algae that block oxygen from reaching fish and other animals. The Guardian, July 14, 2021. 8. Newsbreak. Quote, 2.7 billion years ago, bluish-green microscopic organisms called cyanobacteria flourished in Earth's oceans. They made gaseous or free oxygen from carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight, the process called photosynthesis. Smithsonian Environmental Research Center. 9, excuse me. In the beginning, man bowed in reverence before the process of creation, before the gifts of the earth. Some still do. Is now the time to rise and return that gift? 10. In the end, man got a runny nose, a sore throat, diarrhea and vomiting. In the end, liver damage, numb lips, dizziness, tingling fingers and toes. In the end, dogs died. In the end, man closed the beaches to protect the dogs and people, claiming that blue-green algae was destroying Lake Champlain. In the end, man blamed nature for his own sins. 11. In the end, code red. In the end, code red. In the end, code red. In the end, we are farmers who have forgotten how to farm. In the end, we are hunters whose weapons are made for killing men. In the end, we have cast aside the knowledge of how and when to gather all the earth and sea and air offered with such grace. In the end, we have forsaken our duty to shepherd the earth as if we still loved it. In the end, we must remember what the First Nation peoples of the world nourished in their hearts. That water is sacred, that fire is sacred, that earth is sacred, that air is sacred, that humankind has no value unless we care for and adore these gifts. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds can save us. Let us stand down and begin. Thank you. Our next presenter is Tamara Miles. She's had poems published in a variety of journals and anthologies. She counts her time at the Suwannee Writers Conference and Rivendell Writers Colony as among the most meaningful of her experiences. She has a chapbook called Earth Gospel and is a current member of the board of the Poetry Society. Please give a warm welcome to Tamara. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles, and hello, everyone. Let's go back to 1903 tonight. To Kitty Hawk. As boys, the bike shop brothers flew their kites and clutched at guiding strings. They saw the gathering wind had blind ambitions and witnessed too a band of birds climb toward cold clouds with ease, as if the sky had called their names. Then in the dreams that come to boys, the names they heard above were theirs. Wilbur wrote of his obsession as disease. Always first, a dream is met with some suspicion, both within the self and out. What crafted wings could bear the two to clouds? Their parents winked. Others must have laughed out loud, offered nothing but derision. Now, in December, to the Outer Banks they came, past the 700th glide, and for 12 seconds rose on powered wings because they were more brave than proud and sought truth, freedom more than fame. Every year I write for weeks. I enter a contest called the Obel contest, and it's in Cork City, Ireland, and they give you 5 words to work with, and you write your poem including those words. So these collections I have in my hand are from the years that my poems were placed on the list and published in the book. So this is called Reindeer Moss. And I had to use pitch, fuss, ginger, succumb, and idea. So Reindeer Moss, recalling Robert Frost, who said either fire or ice would do. Cladonia rangiferina, reindeer moss, a lichen, food for heavy Arctic animals who fuss beneath snow to find it. Pastoral, multiple branched, it feathers low across a landscape, determined. Gray, green, or off-white, both fungus and algae. A symbiotic pairing, and does not succumb to biting cold. In warmer climates, when fire creeps in, it is fed and gingered by the moss it lays claim to until flames leap and spread. To the Russian reindeer herder, its antler-like appearance means food is near and with it sustenance. In Yamal, when an ice crust prevents reindeer from getting to the moss, their carcasses lie far and wide on the tundra as witnesses to its significance. The reindeer fall from hunger, go to sleep and lie vulnerable to predators. Rootless then, perhaps 4 inches high, an organism that can live on dew determines the life force of the mighty. National idea in politics. Those above should tremble, lest the ice between us make them weak, their legs buckle and at last collapse, And if fire touches us, we will bear it on our backs until it is pitched to every corner of this landscape, and every mouth becomes a flamethrower. All right, I have a little collection, a little chapbook called Earth Gospel that I'll probably be working on all my life. The chapbook is just an event chapbook. It only has 9 poems in it. But for me, this is my life's work. So I like to write about the earth, the animals, the plants, and everything else, and to celebrate it. But this one is a little bit sad. This is called Exodus. The tree felt empty because the owl left, and the music of the pines was trimmed by a chainsaw into only 2 notes, played with a vibrato. The grass burned up from Roundup, but hadn't felt right for years. The seeds went on strike for better potting soil. All the oceans were filled with oil, and the waterbirds said, "Why have you forsaken me?" They said this to the bumblebee because God had left town with all the people and animals in a suitcase, and there were only half a dozen. The bumblebee was the only one left in his generation. He taught the pines the vibrato, and he only does solos. The fields begged for a plow. The sky did not know how. The wind was scarred by chemicals, and the periodic table collapsed. The orchid said, "We'll try to start over." The roses stared in disbelief. The weeping willow was too filled with grief to cry anymore, but you've heard all this before. So why don't we just skip this chapter and not waste the paper? At this, the audience laughed out loud because the forest had a bad reputation for being pimped out for paper. And the poets hiding in caves, forgotten by God, felt ashamed of using so much, and there was no more peyote to find a vision. The devil was proud and sent an ever-darkening cloud to dim the sun who had long been set to run anyway, and so bid goodbyes to the lullabies she learned. Ain't no sunshine when she's gone, only dark when she's away. The sand was the only one concerned. The rain didn't feel like coming around. The Puget lost its sound. The shrubs drew swords. We'll fight to the end. The moon had its doubts, and a rumble came from the belly of the black holes. All right. I think I will finish with something I hope will be a little bit soothing. Let me see if this works. Bear with me 1 minute. I need a little accompaniment. This is Piano Sonata number 14. Because we all need something beautiful. In the morning, as we wait for the toaster to exhale, I beg you to remember the moonlight. Each magnificent sound and pause, a quilted square of pain and beauty purchased with blood diamonds. Imagine a composer blind, rubbing rubber cement on the keys. These notes stick to you the way good country food sticks to your bones, and woman, your soul is getting thin. Put some butter on that knife. Later, okay, saxophone, that specific touch, that moan. For now, leave all that jazz alone. And in the haunting fog and mist, let yourself be passionately kissed by a master. Sit down here and listen. The sun will be up soon with all the noisy influence. This is the quiet hour before you burn like a rocket. I've brought Beethoven to breakfast. The sky is talking. Thank you. If I can make my music stop now, I'll be good. It doesn't like my mask. So sorry. Okay, let me introduce the next poet. Herlong-Bodman has published a novel, a sailing memoir, and 3 collections of poetry. Her work has appeared in numerous journals. She is a former journalist, travel writer, and college teacher. She taught under the auspices of the U.S. Department of State in Eastern Europe after the Berlin Wall came down. She served on the Poetry Society's board from 2007 to 2011 and continues to work on the Scholar Prize Committee. Welcome, Anne.
2 months before COVID, I moved into a senior living facility. Well, I had plenty of material there. So I started writing. So I'm going to share a few poems from Good Luck, Senior Living. Walking in circles. It will lead us to good health, they tell us, in Good Luck Senior Living, sprawling, convoluted courtyard. Although I usually sit, listening to leaves rustle when the breeze kicks up. Life in a forest, in the low country. Once a national park where live oaks, bent and gnarled, tell of torment and grief in the old South. We all have stories. No car, they just left me here. One woman tells her own story of torment and grief. Who left you? My children. My husband died, and 3 days after the funeral, they brought me here. Is there a time when family love is not enough? When a child is too weary to take it anymore? Whatever it was. Yesterday, I walked with a husband whose wife refuses to listen to another description of their first new car. Brand new 1957 Crown Victoria, he told me. Shiny. You know what I mean? He stands taller, shoulders straight, chrome all the way down each side. He walks faster, imagining himself young again. White shirt open at the throat, one hand on the steering wheel and the other holding his Lucky Strike, smoke billowing. I kept up, remembering all those Friday afternoons, my husband returning after traveling all week, sparkle in his eye, magic of his touch, whiff of Old Spice. Mel is our Vietnam vet. He tells jokes. Once when a helicopter zoomed overhead, he stopped, turned abruptly, and marched the other way, left me standing alone. The next day he had another joke. He's never mentioned the helicopter, never mentioned the war. Something locked deep inside. Louise brought her Steinway with her. Music hovers over and around her. She saunters, strolls in 3/4 time. Only once has she lost the beat and stayed behind. I didn't ask. With Louise, it's easy to forget the damaged, the deformed, easy to forget the storms that caused them. So here we are. Not unlike we were at 25, 45, 65, transitioning, making another being of ourselves, or not. Walking for our health, welcoming new faces, new spaces, and one more time, learning how to use another new Wi-Fi network. Last one, walking. Anna Marie walks around the circle long after others have gone inside. Anna Marie with her aging Westie shuffling beside her. Their last outing for the day. Now, an outsider like you might be driving by in your dark blue convertible. You might feel pity. But at Good Luck Senior Living, nothing is as it seems. She's walking across Charles Bridge, remembering the clock in Old Town Square, striking 6, swans gliding in the river below, Schmetterner's etude in sea floating through lace curtains. She's stored up memories, as we all have. You might say she's using them before time runs out. Calypso and Odysseus are. Don't you wish you could hear them just this once? The two of them together deep in a forest, Calypso and Odysseus on that magical Greek island under the leaves of alder and black poplar. Here at Good Luck Senior Living, it's oak, longleaf pine, and a Charleston bench set back in the holly. Here, no goddess, but a woman long past the age of tight skirts and boots. Here, a man who knows she was loved before, that she glowed in the arms of another, but he has crossed a continent, foiled 2 worn-out knees, and survived too many nights of loneliness, and he's found her. And if we slipped close and listened to this white-haired couple, we'd hear no idle chatter, no song of desire or dread of what's to come, but silence, soft sigh perhaps, a look or smile that reminds each they're not alone. There will be another sunrise. Who knows where the joy goes? And this is not my title, it's another poet's title. I'm borrowing it. Who knows where the joy goes? As with the lone deer appearing from the shadows like some ancient soul seeking answers. As with the residents in senior living as they counted their steps to good health. As with that year of isolation, book club canceled, Sunday brunch deleted, centuries old handshake reinvented, weeds, brown leaves, and frosted dandelions. As with this self, I'm reinventing. Always the work at hand, the poet warns. But I thought work within, that search for meaning, a way to shape the day, a new me. I thought that would be done at my age. Is there no break from the work of finding joy? And I too have a Christmas poem. It comes from my book, and it's the closest thing I'm going to get to a sailing poem tonight. I usually read sailing poems, but I'm trying to get away from it, Jim. imagine tonight, if you lived on the, you walk down, a few blocks, go to the right, go on down to Lockwood, get to Ashton Marina, you would park your car and you would walk across the little bridge down to the docks. And this is what you would hear and see. Bells ring, sailors string lights, sing to the wind, fishermen too. Plastic Santas, red and green globes, wave and smirk, as if especially blessed in all this. Across the street, a woman leans at a hospital window, tubes tendering from her nostrils. No one to hold her up. Voters hark to glory, birth, and kings. Speakers blare joy to the world. Stars drown, deckhands raise glasses. And soon a two-masted ketch sails by. I look up. The woman appears at the window again. Someone holding her up. The sky so clear, I swear I see angels streaking toward Bethlehem. And I get to tell about Marcus Amaker. And I'm going to tell something personal first. I remember him as a freshman, University of South Carolina College of Journalism. Somehow we just all knew something was going to happen to him, to Marcus. And we followed him closely. I followed him all the way to Charleston, and then he has just taken off. University, I'm sure if I could speak for the university, I would say we are so proud of you. Marcus Amaker is Charleston's first poet laureate, an Academy of American Poets Fellow, and an opera librettist. His poetry has been recognized by the Washington Post, the Kennedy Center, Button Poetry, NPR, PBS NewsHour, and more. His poem, The Rain, is on the Grammy-nominated album Dreams of a New Day by opera singer Will Liverman. I introduce Marcus Amaker.
I love you, Anne. Those poems are amazing. Those are really great. And in the beginning, God gave your body a checklist. Keep your heart on beat and your lungs dancing with oxygen, not passive to air. Make sure the path of your blood slows down for checkpoints and avoids bumps in the road. Train your nerves to keep a balanced pace and stay within the lines of steady flow. Push forward without putting too much pressure on movement. Remember to return to water when your spirit and its frame are in drought. Treat your body like a well-rounded planet built for all seasons, or pretend you are an adaptable star. Float in the black and stay there if you need to. Save some light for yourself. In other words, rest like the sun does. Schedule some time to stay out of sight when too many people praise warm energy. Keep in mind all of these things. When depression tells you nothing is working, keep in mind all of these things when it tells you there is no invisible force connecting us, when your veins are stopped by blood clots, when your bones are dry and the water is too quick to boil. Keep in mind all of these things when it tells you that the soul is like the body, made to be broken, open to deterioration and doubt. Yes, keep in mind all of these things and remember. Even when it seems like the clock isn't ticking, you were made perfectly for this moment in time. I am the father of a 2-year-old, and she notices the things that I don't notice. So in this room, the first thing she would have noticed is the owl. So how many folks here saw the owl when you walked in? Okay. So yeah, so there's an owl over there. She would have pointed to that and been like, hoot, hoot. Like that would have been the first thing she would have noticed. It's a wonderful experience being a father. The first week of her life was the most challenging week of my life. She had a breathing issue and she had to go to NICU. It was a challenging time. This is about that. It's called, a doctor tells us it's not a life or death situation. Before my daughter's lungs found a consistent rhythm, they were offbeat, coming in on the 1, 1, 3, 2, unsteady and unsettled, too fast and not finishing the notes. The nurses are worried, concerned with her cadence. My mother was once scared for mine because she found a punk rock CD on my nightstand. It was a threat, a kind of music she didn't understand. A specialist comes and gives us the notes my daughter should be playing. He sounds like sheet music of worry. I tell myself she is already a fan of Ornette Coleman or Autechre. Imagine that. A baby who'll skip lullabies for bebop and experimental electronic music. Instead, they hook her up like a drum machine. Wires everywhere, measuring her beats. 1, 1, 3, 2 eventually becomes 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't remember what it was like when my lungs arrived underwater, already expert swimmers, more fish than flesh. I just know what it feels like to be a new parent, in and out of emotional control, drowning in panic before everything finds its steady pulse. I'm tired of writing poems about racism, but I also live in Charleston. This is a poem about gentrification and explaining it to somebody who might not understand it. It's called Of Color. When someone asks you why it hurts the earth to pull one flower from the field of flowers, tell them you are the lilac or the hibiscus, growing and sunbathing in a community of natural color, and you know a lot of kinfolk who have the same roots. Tell them your kind of people are earth people, and if there's anything you know, it's the pain of one of your petals being picked, of your home life disrupted by fires, bugs, concrete, or men who are too distracted by what's above them. Men who are too focused on skylines to notice their dirty shoes walking on sacred ground. So yes, when one of us is uprooted or displaced from the soil that raised us, we feel it. Tell them you would feel it too, especially if the flower looked like you or was anywhere close to the same hue. Find my Instagram machine. It's here somewhere. Yes. This poem is for my transgender family and friends. It's called They, Them, Us. The preacher reminds us that we are never truly in our bodies. The skin is a blanket for an already warm soul, deep sleeping through life before heaven's alarm clock. So really, what could be more spiritual than realizing your spirit has outgrown the body it was given? What could be more truthful than knowing your true self is wide awake in a sleeping world? You are free to find heaven even if you don't believe heaven exists. You are already the God that God intended. All right, I have a couple more. This was written thinking about the Christmas season, but also thinking about how much stuff we buy, but also how many things I've let go of over the years. It's called Kept and Let Go Of. I've obsessed over so many things that eventually ended up in a landfill, like the fancy lamplight that never quite turned on and the overpriced headphones that broke after I forced it to make too many connections, etc. and excess. I've zombie walked through stores with a rotting bank account and a credit card corpse, pulled the trigger on a purchase, then watched as it was dumped on my doorstep, dead on arrival. All of these things were laid to rest before their prime, under a pile of promises, before they were able to know the grace of living without the burden of survival. I guess everything dies except for capitalism. Even my mind is an assembly line of temporary junk. I've been mad at math for going under just because I'm drowning in earthly temptations. I have anxieties that shop me around like corporate parts, fears that have their place but only live in closet-like mental spaces collecting dust until a new worry entices me with its spotless shine. All of this stuff will eventually be laid to rest when I realize I've spent too much time and money confusing treasure with trash. I've made room for things that ended up too heavy on my heart and hands to hold. I am tired of writing about racism, but I live in Charleston. This is called The Creepy Crawlies. Cops hide behind the bushes of busy highways like cockroaches planting themselves in the shadow pathways of your home. Danger has an ego. It disguises itself in comfort, shifts restlessly in the folds, and waits for acknowledgement. Lights on, antennas up. Instantly, you realize you don't have the privilege of not being fearful. Immediately, you sit up straight and your palms start sweating, clutching the now slip-stained handle of a steering wheel as you try to remember how much weight your foot can hold. How many times you slammed your shoes to the floor, how easy it is to confront death. Instead of you killing the bug kills you. And all of this murder reminds you of when you were young and the Bible told you, thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not kill, I guess, unless it is a mosquito on your baby's forehead, the flight of thin wings resting after a wind-weary search for flesh. In that moment, you become executioner. A quick palm smack brings oblivion or bardo, but no blood guilt or mercy, just death. Thou shalt not kill, I guess, unless it is that cockroach, the bug laureate, its slick brown skin soon to stain clean, wall paint, the larger the body, the more brutal the murder, be it a sneaker or poison shot straight into the eyes, no blood guilt or mercy, just death. And thou shalt not kill, I guess, unless you are a policeman, and the slick brown skin that scares you belongs to a black body, still breathing, before you become slayer. No blood guilt or mercy, just death. Thank you.
Well, that was wonderful. I think you will agree that was a great lineup, a great combination, great, oh my God, that was good. And I just love being back here. I'm so glad that So many seats are filled. If you want to meet the poet, here's what always happens. I will tell you this right now. The poets try to get back to the book table, and people stop them here and talk to them forever. So I want to get the poets back to their books, and you can talk to them there, reward them for this wonderful, wonderful reading with your purchase or your kind words. Thank you, Marjory. Thank you, Miho. Thank you, Charles, Tamara. Beautiful reading. And Herlong-Bodman, wonderful as always. You are one of the best readers of poetry that I know. And finally, Marcus, who is always completely spectacular. That will wind this part up. We're gonna just go back to the book table, take a look at what they've got to offer. There's some really neat things here. And thank you for coming. We are going to try to be back in person from here to the end of the season in May. Hopefully we can pull that off. If not, we're going to go back to Zoom when we have to, but this was wonderful. So thank you, and thank you for the people watching tonight. Show you the website. So, I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. It was a really special night. And we'll say good night to you. And everyone else, please hang around and we'll talk. It's been a while.
Everybody.